The British Empire was amongst the greatest empires the world has ever seen. Its land area of 35 million square kilometres or 13 million square miles, spanning every continent of the world, was the largest of any empire in history. At its height in 1922, the empire was home to 458 million people, which was about a quarter of the global population at the time. This is a larger percentage of the population than the current most populous country, China, currently makes up. While the British Empire may now be long gone, its legacy is very much alive, and the dominance of English as the international language of media, culture and finance. Through institutions like the Commonwealth, and arguably most prominently, through the continued global importance of the 5 Anglosphere nations, of the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and United States. While America may have broken away from the empire violently, the other 3 broke off diplomatically, which is why they still share a monarchy as well as a parliamentary system of government with the UK. Today all 5 of the nations are close military allies, and have cooperated in several recent conflicts, most notably the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This begs the question, what would happen if these 5 nations with a closely shared history and culture united into a single country? That is what this video seeks to find out. A united Anglosphere would have an absolutely gargantuan population of 475 million people, replacing the United States as the 3rd most populous nation in the world, behind India and China. Of this population, the United States would contribute about 335 million people, almost exactly 70% of the Anglosphere's population. The other 4 would contribute the remaining 30%, with the UK contributing 14% with its 67 million people, Canada contributing 9% with its 40 million people, Australia contributing 5% with its 26 million people, and New Zealand contributing 1.1% with its 5.2 million people. The Anglosphere would have a population substantially larger than that of the EU, having a population about 26 million people, or 1 metric Australia, higher than the EU's population of 448 million people. Its population would be fairly diverse in terms of ethnicity, language and religion. As a first language, English would be spoken by about 78% of the population, followed by Spanish, which would be spoken by 9%, and French, which would be understood by just under 2%. Various other languages would have hundreds of thousands to millions of speakers, including Chinese, Hindi, Polish and Japanese. In total, people of European ancestry would constitute 312 million people, being mostly descendants of British and Irish people, but with substantial numbers of other Europeans as well, notably Germans, making up about 65% of the population. People of Latin American ancestry would constitute 13% of the population. People of Sub-Saharan African ancestry would constitute 10% of the population. And people of East and South Asian ancestry would contribute the remaining 9% of the population. With the remaining 3% belonging to other groups, including people of mixed racial ancestry, people of Middle Eastern and North African ancestry, and people of Pacific Islander ancestry. In terms of religion, the Anglosphere would be home to 276 million Christians, constituting 58% of its total population. Broken down further, Protestants would be the largest Christian sect, making up 35% of the population, while Catholics would make up 20%. Mormons would make up 1.5% and Orthodox Christians would make up 0.7%. The second largest group would be those of no religious affiliation, constituting a majority in all regions of the Anglosphere outside North America and growing in numbers. This group includes atheists, agnostics and people who consider themselves to be spiritual but not religious, numbering 131 million people. They would constitute about 28% of the Anglosphere's population. The third largest religious group would be Muslims, constituting about 2.3% of the Anglosphere's population. The fourth largest group would be Jews, who would constitute about 1.7% of the population. The only other religious group to make up more than 1% of the population would be Hindus at 1.2%. Overall, the Anglosphere would be one of the most ethnically and religiously diverse nations in the world. In terms of land area, the Anglosphere would be an absolutely gargantuan 28 million square kilometres, or 10 million square miles. Not only would it be about 10 million square kilometres bigger than the current largest country, Russia, it would also be the second largest state to have ever existed, only behind the historic British Empire itself. This massive area shouldn't come as a surprise, given 3 of its constituent countries, Canada, the United States and Australia, are already some of the largest nations in the world, being the 2nd, 3rd and 6th largest countries by area respectively. The UK and New Zealand would contribute less than 1% of the Anglosphere's land area each. The Anglosphere would be home to some of the most stunning scenery in the world, including the Rockies, Appalachia, the mountains of New Zealand, the outback of Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, the Lake District of England, Snowdonia of Wales, the Highlands of Scotland, and the Mourns of Northern Ireland would all contribute to the collective scenery of this superstate. Not only would the Anglosphere be the largest nation in the world by far, it would also arguably have the most natural beauty. Unsurprisingly, given the United States is already the largest economy in the world, the Anglosphere would be the world's largest economy. Its GDP of $34 trillion would be roughly double the size of the second largest economy, China. It would be home to some of the biggest centres of global finance in the world, including Wall Street, New York, the City of London, and British territories which serve as offshore tax havens, such as Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, and Guernsey and Jersey. Not only that, it would also be home to the media powerhouse of Hollywood, as well as the tech powerhouse of Silicon Valley. Its economy would mostly be dominated by the finance and service industry, although a substantial manufacturing and general blue-collar economy would exist as well. The Anglosphere would be home to more oil reserves than any other state, controlling Scotland's North Sea oil fields along with the oil fields of Texas and the Gulf of Mexico, and the oil fields of Alberta, just to name a few. Mining would also be particularly prominent in Australia. Its GDP per capita of $72,000, the 8th highest in the world, behind Iceland but ahead of Denmark, would mean at least on paper the citizens of the Anglosphere would be amongst the wealthiest people in the world. Militarily, if we assume all 5 nations' armed forces would combine into one, the Anglosphere would be militarily the most powerful nation in the world, almost entirely due to the inclusion of the United States military. The Anglosphere's military budget would be a jaw-dropping $1 trillion, with the United States military budget making up 87% of that. In terms of active duty troops, however, it would only be the second largest military in the world, overtaking India but behind China with its 1.7 million troops in comparison to China's 2 million. It would also have far more warplanes than any other country, with a total of 7,241. It would have the second largest nuclear weapons arsenal in the world, with 5,449 warheads, only behind Russia. It would also be home to some of the largest and most important cities in the world. Not counting metro areas, its 5 largest cities would be London, followed by New York, Sydney, Los Angeles and Toronto. In terms of a capital city, it's unclear what city may be chosen. While London may seem like the obvious choice, given it is both the most populous city in the Anglosphere and serves as the capital of the British Empire. However, its location on the opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean from North America, where about 80% of the Anglosphere would live, may lead to a city in North America being chosen instead, such as New York. It's also possible a more neutral city, such as Toronto, may be chosen, as to have the capital be in either the former UK or US. Thanks for watching. Do you think the Anglosphere will ever unite into a single nation? And if it were to, would that be a good thing? Comment your opinion. Also, please like and subscribe if you've made it this far, as it would really help the channel and allow me to make more videos like this. Also, comment any ideas for future videos you think I should make. If your comment gets enough likes, I'll see it's a topic people want me to discuss and make a video on it. Also, if you can, please support me on Patreon, link in the description.